Last Tuesday, Sarah received a call that changed everything. Her 78-year-old mother had been found wandering the neighborhood at 2 a.m., confused and unable to remember how she got there. But here's the shocking part. This wasn't the first sign. For months, there had been subtle changes that Sarah dismissed as normal aging. Changes that, if she had recognized them earlier, could have prevented that terrifying night. If you're watching this video, chances are you've noticed something different about your elderly parent or loved one, but you're not sure if it's serious or just part of getting older. Maybe they seem more withdrawn lately, or perhaps they've been making unusual decisions that don't seem like them. You might be thinking, am I overreacting? Is this really something to worry about? The truth is, mental health struggles in seniors are often invisible until they become a crisis. Unlike physical ailments that we can see, mental health decline happens quietly, behind closed doors, in ways that even the most loving families miss. And unfortunately, by the time most families recognize the signs, their loved one has been suffering in silence for months or even years. But what if I told you that there are 5 specific signs that most people completely overlook, that can alert you to mental health struggles before they become emergencies? What if recognizing just one of these signs could be the difference between getting help early and facing a devastating crisis? Today, I'm going to share with you the 5 hidden signs that your elderly parent is struggling mentally. These aren't the obvious signs that everyone talks about. These are the subtle, often dismissed indicators that mental health professionals use to identify seniors who need immediate support. And sign number 3, it's so commonly ignored that it's happening in homes across America right now, and families have no idea their loved one is crying out for help. In the next few minutes, you're going to discover exactly what to look for, why these signs are so dangerous when ignored, and most importantly, what you can do about them today. We'll cover the communication changes that signal depression, the behavioral shifts that indicate anxiety, and the decision-making patterns that reveal cognitive decline. But more than that, I'm going to tell you about Margaret, an 82-year-old grandmother whose family almost lost her because they missed these exact signs. Her story will shock you, but more importantly, it will show you how recognizing just one of these indicators saved her life and transformed her final years from isolation and despair into joy and connection. By the end of this video, you'll have a clear action plan for what to do if you recognize any of these signs in your loved one. You'll know which professionals to contact, what questions to ask, and how to approach this sensitive topic without making your parent feel attacked or defensive. The stakes couldn't be higher. According to the World Health Organization, depression affects 14% of adults aged 60 and over. But here's the terrifying truth. Up to 85% of cases go undiagnosed and untreated. That means millions of seniors are suffering in silence right now, and their families have no idea. But before we dive into these 5 critical signs, I need you to do something important. If this information could help save someone's life, and it absolutely can, then I need you to hit that subscribe button right now and give this video a thumbs up. Here's why this matters. YouTube's algorithm will only show this video to more families if it sees that people are engaging with it. Your like and subscription aren't just supporting this channel. They're literally helping this life-saving information reach other families who desperately need it. Imagine if the family next door or your coworker or your neighbor could see this video and recognize these signs in their own parent. Your simple click could be the reason someone gets help before it's too late. So please take 2 seconds right now to hit subscribe and like. And if you know someone who has elderly parents, share this video with them after you watch it. You might just save a life. Now let's get into these 5 hidden signs. The first hidden sign that your elderly parent is struggling mentally is a subtle but significant change in their communication patterns. This isn't about them forgetting words or having trouble hearing. This goes much deeper than that.
Dr. Jennifer Martinez, a geriatric psychiatrist with over 20 years of experience, explains that one of the earliest indicators of mental health decline in seniors is a shift in how they communicate, particularly over the phone. She says, "We often see parents who used to call their adult children regularly suddenly become much more quiet, or conversely, they might start calling multiple times a day with the same concerns." Here's what to watch for. Has your parent, who used to have lengthy, detailed conversations with you, suddenly become someone who gives one-word answers? Do they seem to struggle to find topics to talk about when they used to be full of stories and opinions? Or, on the flip side, have they become repetitive, asking the same questions or telling the same stories multiple times in a single conversation? Pay special attention to changes in their emotional expression during conversations. A parent who used to laugh at jokes or express excitement about family news, but now responds with flat, emotionless responses, may be experiencing depression. Similarly, if they've become unusually anxious or worried during conversations, constantly asking what-if questions about unlikely scenarios, this could indicate developing anxiety disorders. The reason this sign is so often missed is because families adapt to these changes gradually. You might think, well, Dad's always been quiet, but if you really think back to conversations from 6 months or a year ago, you might realize that his communication style has shifted dramatically. There's also the digital aspect to consider. Many seniors today use texting, email, or social media. Changes in their digital communication can be even more telling because there's a written record. Are their messages becoming shorter and less personal? Are they making more spelling or grammatical errors than usual? Are they sending confused or repetitive messages? The second hidden sign involves changes in daily routines and self-care that are so gradual, families often don't notice them until they become severe. This isn't about forgetting to shower occasionally or wearing the same shirt 2 days in a row. This is about fundamental shifts in how your parent maintains their daily life. Mental health professionals call this activities of daily living decline, and it's one of the most reliable early indicators of depression, anxiety, or early cognitive decline in seniors. The key word here is subtle. These changes happen slowly and can be easily dismissed as having a bad week or getting older. Start by thinking about your parents' routine from a year ago versus now. Did they used to get dressed every morning, even if they weren't going anywhere, but now you notice they're staying in pajamas or house clothes more often? This isn't about comfort, it's about motivation and self-worth. Look at their living environment. Are there piles of mail that used to be handled immediately? Are dishes sitting in the sink longer than usual? Is their normally tidy home becoming cluttered or disorganized? These aren't signs of laziness. They're indicators that your parent may be feeling overwhelmed, depressed, or anxious about making decisions. Personal hygiene changes are particularly important to notice. A parent who used to take pride in their appearance but now seems to have stopped caring about their hair, makeup, or clothing choices may be experiencing depression. This is especially significant if they used to enjoy dressing up for social occasions but now make excuses to avoid them.
Sleep patterns are another crucial indicator. Has your normally early rising parent started sleeping much later? Or conversely, are they waking up at 4 a.m. and unable to get back to sleep? Both extreme changes in sleep patterns can indicate depression or anxiety. The most heartbreaking aspect of this sign is that seniors often feel ashamed about these changes, which leads them to become more isolated. They stop inviting people over because they're embarrassed about the state of their home, or they decline social invitations because they don't feel put together enough to be seen in public. Now we come to sign number 3, the one that's so commonly ignored that it's putting thousands of seniors at risk every single day. This sign involves changes in financial judgment and decision-making abilities, and it's the most dangerous because it can have immediate, devastating consequences. Here's why this sign is so critical and so overlooked. Families often dismiss poor financial decisions as mom being generous or dad trying to help out, when in reality, these decisions can be early indicators of cognitive decline, depression-induced impaired judgment, or anxiety-driven desperation. Let me give you some specific examples that should set off immediate alarm bells.
Has your parent suddenly become unusually generous with money, giving large gifts to family members, friends, or even strangers? While generosity is wonderful, sudden changes in spending patterns can indicate they're not thinking clearly about future consequences. Are they falling for scams more easily? Seniors with developing mental health issues or early cognitive problems become prime targets for financial predators. If your parent has always been sharp about money, but suddenly seems to be making poor financial decisions or falling for obvious scams, this could indicate their judgment is compromised. Watch for changes in how they handle routine financial tasks. A parent who used to pay bills on time but now has late notices piling up, or who used to balance their checkbook religiously but now seems confused about their account balance, may be experiencing anxiety that makes financial tasks feel overwhelming, or cognitive changes that make these tasks more difficult. One of the most dangerous manifestations of this sign is when seniors start giving away their possessions or making sudden changes to important documents, like wills or insurance policies. While it's normal for older adults to think about end-of-life planning, sudden or dramatic changes can indicate depression, anxiety about being a burden, or cognitive changes that affect their decision-making abilities. The reason a sign is so dangerous is that by the time families notice, significant financial damage may have already occurred. Unlike other signs that primarily affect the senior's emotional well-being, this sign can quickly destroy their financial security and independence. The fourth hidden sign is perhaps the most heartbreaking because it involves seniors slowly disconnecting from the people and activities they once loved, but doing it in a way that seems like a natural preference change rather than a cry for help. This isn't obvious isolation. This is subtle social withdrawal that happens so gradually that families often don't recognize it as a mental health concern. Your parent might still see people and maintain some social connections, but the quality and frequency of these interactions has declined significantly. Think about your parents' social life from a year or two ago. Did they used to attend religious services regularly but now make excuses to skip? Were they involved in community activities, book clubs, or hobby groups that they've quietly stopped attending? Did they used to enjoy family gatherings but now seem to participate reluctantly or leave early? The key indicator here is that when you ask them about these changes, they have reasonable-sounding explanations. I'm just tired of all the drama at church. The book club is reading books I don't like anymore. Family gatherings are too loud for me now. These explanations seem logical on the surface, but when you look at the pattern, you'll see that your parent is systematically removing themselves from sources of social support and enjoyment. Pay attention to their relationships with longtime friends. Are they still maintaining these friendships, or have they let them quietly fade away? Do they still answer the phone when friends call, or do they screen calls and then not return them? Have they stopped initiating social contact, even with people they used to speak to regularly? One particularly concerning variation of this sign is when seniors start expressing negative feelings about people they used to enjoy. Martha talks too much. Bob is too depressing to be around. The neighbors are too nosy. While some social preferences do change with age, sudden negative feelings toward multiple people in their social circle can indicate depression or anxiety. The fifth and final hidden sign involves changes in how your parent talks about and deals with their physical health. The sign is particularly tricky because it can manifest in two opposite ways, and both can indicate mental health struggles. On one end of the spectrum, you might notice that your parent has become unusually focused on physical symptoms or health concerns. They might be making frequent doctor visits for minor issues, constantly researching health problems online, or expressing excessive worry about normal aging-related changes in their body. This health anxiety often develops as a way for seniors to express emotional distress when they don't have the words or comfort level to talk about mental health directly. Dr. Robert Chen, a geriatrician who specializes in the mind-body connection in aging, explains that seniors often somatize emotional distress, meaning they experience genuine physical symptoms that are actually manifestations of depression, anxiety, or other mental health concerns. I see patients who come in with headaches, stomach problems, or fatigue that have no identifiable physical cause, but when we address their underlying depression or anxiety, these symptoms often improve dramatically. On the other end of the spectrum, and equally concerning, is when a parent who used to be appropriately attentive to their health suddenly becomes dismissive of physical problems or stops seeking medical care altogether. This can indicate depression-related apathy or a concerning shift in their sense of self-worth. Watch for changes in how they describe physical discomfort. Are they using more dramatic language than usual, or conversely, are they minimizing problems that would have concerned them in the past? Are they asking family members to accompany them to medical appointments when they used to go alone, or are they suddenly refusing help when they used to accept it? Sleep-related complaints are particularly important in this category. While sleep changes are common in aging, sudden increases in complaints about insomnia, nightmares, or feeling tired all the time can indicate underlying depression or anxiety. Now let me tell you about Margaret, the 82-year-old grandmother I mentioned earlier, whose story perfectly illustrates how these hidden signs can escalate when ignored and how recognizing them can literally save a life. Margaret had always been the cornerstone of her family, the one who organized holiday gatherings, remembered everyone's birthdays, and was always available for a chat when her adult children needed advice or support. She lived independently in the same house where she'd raised her 4 children, took care of her small garden, and maintained friendships with several neighbors and women from her church. But over the course of about 8 months, Margaret began to change in ways that her family initially dismissed as normal aging. The first thing her daughter Lisa noticed was that their weekly phone calls became shorter and less detailed. Margaret, who used to share stories about her week, her neighbors, and her activities, started giving brief answers to questions and rarely volunteered information about her life. When Lisa asked about this, Margaret said she was just tired and didn't have much interesting things to say. This seemed reasonable to Lisa, especially since Margaret was dealing with some minor health issues at the time. The second change was in her home maintenance. When family members visited, they noticed that her usually immaculate house was becoming cluttered with stacks of mail, newspapers, and magazines. The dishes weren't always done, and her beloved garden was being neglected. When asked about it, Margaret became defensive, saying she was slowing down and didn't need everything to be perfect all the time. The third change, the one that should have been a major red flag, involved Margaret's finances. She had always been extremely careful with money, but suddenly she was making uncharacteristic decisions. She gave her postal carrier a $200 tip at Christmas, which was far more generous than usual. She also fell for a phone scam and sent $500 to someone claiming to be her grandson in trouble. When her son David questioned these decisions, Margaret became angry and accused him of trying to control her money. The fourth change was Margaret's gradual withdrawal from social activities. She stopped attending her weekly bridge game, citing conflicts with other players. She began missing church services, saying the sermons had become too political. She stopped inviting her grandchildren over for their traditional Saturday afternoon visits, claiming she was too tired to keep up with them. The fifth change involved constant complaints about her health. Margaret, who had always been stoic about minor aches and pains, suddenly seemed to have a new physical problem every week. She was making frequent doctor visits for minor issues, constantly researching health problems online, and expressing excessive worry about normal aging-related changes in her body. Her family dismissed each of these changes individually. Mom's getting older. She's entitled to change her mind about activities. She's worried about her health, which is normal at her age. But what they didn't realize was that Margaret was experiencing severe depression, triggered by the loss of her sense of purpose and identity as she aged, combined with anxiety about her increasing physical limitations and fear of becoming a burden on her family. The crisis came on a Tuesday evening when Margaret called Lisa, sobbing and saying she couldn't do this anymore. She'd been having thoughts of suicide and even had researched methods online. She felt hopeless, worthless, and convinced that her family would be better off without her. That phone call saved Margaret's life, but it also revealed to her family how much they had been missing. In retrospect, every single one of the 5 hidden signs had been present for months, but because they had developed gradually and because Margaret had reasonable explanations for each change, no one recognized them as indicators of a serious mental health crisis. Margaret's story has a happy ending, but only because her family acted immediately once they recognized the severity of her situation. They got her into counseling with a therapist who specialized in geriatric mental health, worked with her doctor to address the depression medically, and made changes as a family to ensure Margaret felt valued and connected. Today, 2 years later, Margaret is thriving again. She's back to hosting family dinners, has rejoined her bridge club,